One of the traditions that we have here at the Center for Spiritual Living on Sundays, before we ever even get started, those of us that are here early in the morning, we gather together for a sacred circle where we read our spiritual covenant for our center, and each one of us is invited to introduce a word of intention for the day. And my word this morning was celebration. There's a bunch going on today. It's Father's Day, of course, so happy Father's Day. For those that are joining us on Zoom, Jim and Rod, happy Father's Day to you. It's also Juneteenth, which is a very important holiday that I want to definitely express my gratitude for the recognition of this day, for freedom for all. And it's also my sister's birthday. So happy birthday, Teresa. I know you're joining us on Zoom. I will refrain from singing happy birthday public, but happy birthday. So all of this month we have been talking about the body. Our theme as an organization, and I use that term loosely, our theme is living everyday wonder. But for the month of June, we've been focusing on the idea of the wonder of the body. And today in particular, the topic is the body remembers. And the reason that I'm here speaking with you today is because Reverend Pam and Michael are on vacation. And so they are honoring their bodies by taking a well-deserved and needed rest. And they're also experiencing the beauty and the grandeur of the world as they travel to Norway and beyond. So I hope they're having a wonderful time. I know that they are. So today's affirmation for this idea is I feel and honor every sensation in my body. So the body. We're invited to look at different aspects of our experience here on the planet, having moved from the non-physical into the physical. Some of us call that birth. Happy birthday, sis. Today I'm going to invite you to examine your relationship to your body and to re-assimilate the body-mind. In truth, the mind and body are one, a magnificent conduit between the one mind, which is God, and our individual consciousness. By loving the body, using it to connect to our minds and hearts, and listening to its wisdom, we celebrate its magnificence and awaken to this everyday wonder. Unprocessed, unhealed emotions can hide in our bodies. Over time, this can cause problems ranging from headaches and fatigue to serious medical conditions and depression, and more. Engaging with our bodies in richer, more meaningful ways opens the door to resolve what is unhealed and live more open, authentic lives. So we have wonderfully creative minds and wonderfully responsive bodies. As many of us already know well, we also have wonderfully creative bodies and responsive minds, as the two are always acting in a reciprocal dance with one another. We often focus on top-down causation, using the mind to influence an effect in the body. What we may forget is that the body is responding to everything we do with our minds, including when we suppress our emotions or experience trauma. Conversely, physical experiences in the body can create unhealthy or undesired effects in the mind in bottom-up fashion. We can interrupt the cycles of trauma, both personally and collectively, by intervening in either mind or body. One of my favorite ways to do this when I notice that I'm in a negative mental spiral or even if I'm having a physical pain response to something that I recognize is emotional and in nature. And I don't always notice that immediately, but if I'm having some sort of a pain that kind of popped in from nowhere, not as the result of stubbing my toe or tripping over something, I can be very sure that there's an emotional component to that pain response. So I'll take a walk in nature, or I'll listen to beautiful, uplifting, or soothing meditation music. My playlist depends on what sort of balancing I might need. If I'm feeling lethargic and low energy, I'll want to listen to something really uplifting. You know, it was funny. Don and I went to see the new Top Gun movie last week, and all that old music just came. Boy, man, talk about earworms. I've got that stuck in my head. I highly recommend it. But if I am feeling agitated and anxious, then I'll put on some very soothing meditation music, and that'll just calm my ruffled feathers right on down. So those are a couple of ways to interrupt that spiral that we don't want to engage in. So Ernest Holmes, in the Science of Mind textbook on page 177, he said, "Spiritual man is perfect, but his individual use of life and law enables him to cover a perfect idea with an apparently imperfect cloak. Sickness is not a spiritual reality. It is an experience, an effect, not a cause." And I know that this is possibly in conflict with what a lot of us have been brought up or trained to believe, that if we have pain in our bodies or if we're sick, that can cause us distress in our mind. But actually, the opposite is really true. Everything begins in mind. Everything begins in consciousness. And so that is the place that we can go to bring ourselves back into harmony. So healing, health, and learning to feel our feelings, and releasing old or stuck emotions and sensations doesn't happen overnight. Often we're tempted to think of healing and growth as linear binary events. I used to have this or that trauma, but I processed it, and it's done. This is not the way that any growth happens, and health isn't a yes or no question. There is a whole spectrum of health, and the path through healing means looking at our own experiences of our lives in new and different ways, over and over again. Likewise, healing the systems that create widespread trauma won't happen immediately. But we can each do our parts to heal it in ourselves and in our societies. Collective trauma, like that imparted by centuries of racist structures and oppression, leaves a mark on all of us, though some are obviously more personally and deeply affected. Today in the United States, it's the holiday of Juneteenth, the celebration of the emancipation of enslaved persons. While Juneteenth may be specific to the U.S., across the world, people of color have experienced deep ancestral and personal trauma, from which they deserve liberation, as do we all. By healing individual experiences of trauma, we can heal the collective grief and correct oppressive systems. We can't heal what we refuse to look at. So if pain, sickness, and disease are effects and not causal, how must we shift our perspective to see spiritual truth and wholeness in the face of an appearance of conflict? We recognize the effects of unhealed and unprocessed and unexpressed emotion trauma, and grief as having an adverse action in our bodies. The effect the effect in our bodies of joy, peace, love, comfort, and security are just as true. So if the quality and condition of our thinking minds have brought adverse experiences in our physical bodies, the opposite is also possible. Not only possible, but natural. So, if we're in a place of dis-ease, sickness, or illness, a shift is possible simply by embracing a thought, perhaps a memory of joy, perhaps gratitude, a practice of looking beyond whatever is getting our attention right now and looking into everything around us that we have to be grateful for. That can have an immediate healing effect, even in the physical realm. It not only takes our attention away from what is bothering us, whether it's pain or illness, or maybe just depression, it shifts our whole energetic field of our bodies into a different frequency. And all of a sudden we're open to noticing more and more things to be grateful for. They start becoming front and center, and whatever it was that was bothering us is disappearing into the background, becoming less and less insistent on our attention. In my own prayer work, I make a point of spending whatever time is needed to really feel what I'm feeling. If I'm angry, sad, confused, or embarrassed, I am allowed to feel it all. I let myself be there. I let myself feel what I'm feeling. I make a point of not pushing it away or suppressing it or discounting it. I let myself feel that. However, I don't get stuck there. I feel it until I am very sure, quite confident, that it has said everything it needs to say to me and the message is delivered. To do otherwise would be to invite it to pop up at another, perhaps more inopportune time. In the sanctuary of my mind, I can embrace the emotion. I can taste it. I can hear its voice. I give it color and dimension. And then I call it by its true name, fear, and release it to be transmuted. Fear is a signal that I have forgotten who and what I am. In the moment that I remember who and what I am, which is an individualized expression of the One. When I really embrace that idea and I know it to the core of my being, I know that there is nothing to fear. There is no other. There is only the One, and I am one with that One. Fear can be transmuted by love. Like in the Course of Miracles teaches, there's only two real emotions, fear and love. And whatever isn't love is a call for love. Fear is just calling to be loved. So Deepak Chopra writes, people thrive when they feel loved and languish when they don't. Love increases one's sense of self-esteem, which leads to taking better care of oneself. Love also alleviates stress, anxiety, and depression, which reduces a chronic inflammation response and risk for many age-related disorders. Love is a state of awareness, not a lifestyle choice. Ultimately, what counts aren't the choices you make, but the consciousness that keeps those choices going in a constant state of healing. That's from Deepak Chopra's book, The Healing Self. And I love that statement because all of us for years have been hearing about our lifestyle choices, when love is the ultimate choice that keeps us in a state of healing. So healing, health, and learning to feel our feelings and releasing old or stuck emotions. Oh, we went there already, didn't we? Yes, we did. So finding a way to be fully alive in the present and engaged with others. This is the guidance from Bessel van der Kolk. He wrote the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And I've been listening to this book, and it's very, he's a physician, a psychiatrist, and so it's very, very medical based and science based, but it is fascinating, his work that he's done with Vietnam veterans and other people in psychiatric situations. And he has come to find that he talks about 3 ways of shifting out of the mental state that is expressing as physical disorders. But the third way the first 2 are fairly conventional. The third way is saying that finding a way to be fully alive in the present and engaged with others. He did a lot of work with Vietnam veterans in which he noticed that so many of them with PTSD were living in the past, and they kept going to the past, to their dramatic events in combat, and kept reliving those traumas over and over again. And so he's inviting us to engage in the present and with others. And so I was also listening to a podcast by a 10% Happier podcast with Dan Harris, and he was doing an interview. And in the course of the interview, the subject of loneliness came up, and this idea that isolation and loneliness is ultimately leading to a great deal of illness and disease and premature death. And so the invitation and the wisdom is to stay connected with people, to reach out and be in community. And in this way, we can find our way back to health and wholeness. And so I was talking to my sister last night, and I needed her help with some of these references. And so this is a direct quote, she said, "We co-regulate with other humans and with animals." And I haven't heard that term co-regulate before, but I understand that it means that our mental state, the energetic signature that we're broadcasting out there all the time, can be regulated in a positive way with other humans, with people we love, people that we are in community with. And I'm more familiar with it in a very negative way when they talk about the mob mentality. That's also co-regulating. But I know all of us have heard, or at least most of us, I believe, have experienced that co-regulation that we have with animals. There is nothing like a cat in your lap, purring, sleeping. There's nothing like a walk in nature with your dog and being present with that living being to co-regulate ourselves back into a state of gratitude, joy, and bliss. So in conclusion, not really much of a conclusion. It's more of like an invitation to get out there and and live that experience. There's a conclusion here somewhere, I just know. Our bodies, quite literally, keep the score of every thought, mental attitude, and trauma they experience. Whether we try to push these pains away mentally or not, they are stored in our body and must eventually be addressed in order to live free and authentic lives. It can be hard to start feeling them, especially for those of us with many unhealed traumas or who have become accustomed to not going there at all. A gentle way to begin is just by noticing whatever sensation the body is having, and patiently and curiously considering whatever comes up. This process, while personal to each of us, can also be used to address and begin to correct the systems of oppression that have traumatized countless bodies and hearts for the past several centuries. This week, push through your personal discomfort as you get to know your own body and the discomfort that may come with hearing and learning about the experiences of people who've been affected by social structures. Those social structures are all around us. Some of them are pretty blatant and in our face, and others are much more subtle and require us to be vigilant and paying attention to anything that minimizes, marginalizes, or denigrates another human being. For we know that we are all one, and we are all just walking each other home. So the invitation today is to join together in community and consciously invite each other back into health and wholeness and joy and peace and love. Above all, love. So join me in a closing prayer. Breathing. I embrace that which is breathing me, that inexpressible, ineffable one, the one intelligence, one power, one love, one indivisible, creative mind. And I am remembering that I am made of and from the substance of this one. And therefore I can take a deep breath. I can let God be God in me. I can open new eyes and see a new vista. I now recognize the beauty, the harmony, the symmetry, the magnificence of all creation that I am one with. And from this place of knowing, I can release everything that I have been carrying unhealed, unprocessed, unexamined. I can learn from all of these experiences, knowing that every ache and every pain and every sickness has been a message. It's been an invitation, a signal to wake up, to pay attention, to be fully present. So I take this all in. I embody it in the light of love. And I release my word into the law, knowing that it always returns fulfilled. And I am free. I am free to live in love, in peace, in joy, harmony, in wholeness. And as this is true for me, this word goes out to each one of us, to all beings, as we say together, and so it is.